30-something years have passed since the 90s started, and bikes have changed massively in that time. You just think, carbon has developed loads, wheels are wider, tyres are tubeless and wider, bars are narrower, gears are electric, and brakes are kind of disc. But does all of that change mean that bikes are actually faster, or has all of the innovation been a bit pointless? This is an MBK from 1993, so it is older than I am, though looking at the welds on this compared to my dodgy back, this is probably in better condition. It has tiny 22mm tyres, box section wheels, down tube shifters, rim brakes, and a steel frame from... I've got notes on this actually, haven't I? In a pocket. My piece of paper says that the frame was built by Vitus, and it might be Columbus Tubing, but the original owner, who is very kindly lent us this for the day, doesn't actually know. He's been doing his research though. It is, however, a Chazal Veta team bike. So this is an actual pro bike from 1993. Look, you can see it's got the number holder and everything. I think it looks fantastic. They really don't like paint bikes like this anymore. And this is what it's up against. It's my Aethos. I will admit right now that this is not exactly the most modern superbike that you can buy. I would say that for this to be modern, it would need fully aero tubes and an integrated front end, but I like it and I still own it, and so we thought we'd use it today. It has a load of the changes that are representative of modern cycling. So these tyres, they're 34mm wide. They say 30s on, but because of the rims that they sit on, which are tubeless and hookless, well, they sit out really, really wide. We've also got a super advanced carbon frame, which inspired a lot of the stuff that you'll find on the SL8, the tarmac. We've got a super narrow front end. So the MBK has 44cm bars. This has 36cm up at the hoods here, and that's massive for aerodynamics because most of your aero drag comes from you. So if you can make front end smaller, that is huge. It also has semi-wireless shifting. It's also got disc brakes. And then with the finishing kit, that's all carbon. And that brings about a massive difference in the weight. So the MBK weighs in at 9.7 something kilos. And this is significantly lighter. But how do these two machines compare? Well, we're going to do a series of challenges to test things like climbing, aero, and also braking. And to answer once and for all, has there been any progression since the 90s? So, braking test, we're going to get up to 30 kilometers per hour, and then we've got a defined line, and we'll brake from there on the hoods, and we'll see which one stops sooner. Okay, going to get up to 30 kilometers per hour here. There we go. Right, ease it back, and then we've got a line. Should we measure it? All right, let's put the stick down there, and then scientifically we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's say 11.5 yards. Ooh. Tell you what, when these bikes get going, they really get going. Okay, under brakes. Okay, that's nearly double the distance of the modern bike, but why is that? On the rim brake bike, with those levers, you just don't have a lot of mechanical advantage over the lever. So you're pulling your hands through a system that is creating drag. On these levers, you're pulling a hydraulic system, which doesn't really have much drag at all in the system. And no, I'm not being paid by big cycling or big disc brakes. I just think they're a bit better. The aero credentials of road bikes have improved massively since the 90s, and it's not just in the frames, where tubes have got like deeper. Other jazzy stuff is going on with the wheels, the bars, and hell, even some tires are aero now. I'm going to go up and down on each bike at the same power. I'm going to hold the same position, and we're just going to see what the time difference is. Okay, first up is an aero test, and this one is pretty simple. We're going to go here from this line, and then we are going to go all the way. I need to lap this in. We're going to go all the way to the junction. We're going to turn around, come back, and I am going to hold as close as possible, 250 watts average. And I'm going to be riding in an elbows tucked position with my head kind of looking forward. So we'll try and hold a very, very similar position, though obviously there are differences in the positions of the bikes. The surface here will be interesting as well. It's not the best paved road in the world. We're going to turn around at the slow mark. And that should give us a nice repeatable turning point. And cross the line. 5 minutes 50. Okay, now for the old bike. Out the 90s. Let's go. Oh, out of the saddle, God. How do people hold these levers? Like, I'm trying to tuck down. Oh, no. I feel like I've got no control over the front. I've just got no grip. Like, I'm so used to having that. And if I go to the sides, I feel so wide. Also, I'm missing my shifters off of the levers. It feels very weird to have to go down. Oh my God. God, they jump. Oh, I feel like I'm really getting a bit beaten up. These roads aren't the best, but these tiny tires are really, really hammering me. Oh, around here, oh, those brakes are not good. Jesus. It's also very hard, I would say, to brake while you're also wanting to shift down, and you know, the modern rider in me can do all of that at once, and yeah, you just can't do that here. Ooh.
And with that, the 90s bike came across the line in a time of 6 minutes and 18 seconds. Firstly, the difference between the tyre sizes was so noticeable over the course we chose. The rough surface meant that I spent more time seemingly going into the air on the old bike than actually going forward. And then there was the biggest difference, the position. On the modern bike, I was able to tuck super efficiently into a nice aerodynamic riding position. The 90s bike was simply very wide at the front, and it's noticeable how you find yourself catching the wind. Maybe on a smoother course with only one acceleration point, the results might have been different, but I can't say that I'm entirely surprised by the result. Anyway, on to the next test.
There are also some big differences in the gears. Most obviously, the shifters have moved from down here on the down tube to on the levers, and that has some advantages, but there's more. What we have these days is known as index shifting. So when you click the shift lever, be it mechanical or electronic, the derailleur moves a set distance. Now, that wasn't the case with shifting for ages. These are actually index levers, but for friction shifters, you had to kind of like just nudge it enough to get it into the right gear. Anyway, I think we can agree that indexing is a good thing. To be honest, the gearing that we have now is incredible. I'd say the Shimano Q's stuff that you get on the most basic bikes is probably better than a lot of top-end stuff from the late 90s. And then there is the semi-wireless stuff on my Aethos. It's bloody lovely to use. It's fast, it's accurate, and it's horrifically expensive. I think it's safe to say that the new stuff is better, but I know a lot of people, me included, still do have a soft spot for these kind of old down tube shifters, be them friction or indexed.
You know what else has got better since the 90s? Tech. My first bike computer could tell me how fast I was going, and that was about it, if it was working that day. Now, with the likes of the Karoo from today's sponsor Hammerhead, you can do so much more, along with seemingly infinite data fields which are all customizable. You can do stuff like control your music from your head unit, so if you like listening to some tunes as you ride like I do, this makes it a lot easier, because you don't need to pull your phone out to skip Ed Sheeran. There's also the extensions library, which is basically an app store for your Hammerhead. And these can do all sorts of things, like giving you custom data if you're using an aero sensor. But the most useful for me is something that is actually quite basic. I can set up custom alerts to remind me to eat and drink. It sounds simple, but it's something that I struggle to remember, and I know a lot of people do too. So if you want to get better at fueling, and therefore ride faster, this is so worth setting up. To learn more about the Karoo, head to the link in the description.
I want to do a simple climbing test. There is a climb behind me, and I'm going to ride up it on both bikes. I'm going to do so a similar power, but I'm not looking for a time difference here. What I want to test is how each bike feels with very different weights, but also very different frame and wheel materials. Oh. Okay. Oh, very smooth, this bike. We have a nice road surface, to be fair. I have to say, struggling to find a decent position. The bars are so wide compared to my Aethos. How they rode the likes of the Stelvio and the big Alpine passes on these bikes, on these gears, it's beyond me. Climbing on this would be a dream if it had some nice gears. But that is where we're gonna finish that signpost. And of course I've got to go down here to do my gears. That's fine. Now then, let's see what this is like going back down. There's a good crosswind coming from the left. On the modern bike with the deeper wheels, you might expect to feel that sensation of getting blown around a bit. This, nothing. Andrew, I'm glad to be alive. My shorts are now brown. I'm back onto the Aethos now for the climbing test, and this is just instantly so noticeably different. Just coming down a little bit of the hill from the car, it was amazing to have the disc brakes back again. Just so much more control from the hoods, but also way more power and very, very easily modulated power. This feels, I'll tell you what, it feels strange getting out of the saddle on this. Like, it feels narrow. The gearing on that thing is just savage. Okay, let's head back down. Be interesting to feel what this crosswind feels like. Yeah, just a small tug on the front wheel. But a credit to modern deep rims, feels very stable. On the brakes, well, I don't need to brake yet. Plenty of control and no brown shorts. So, has there been progression since the 90s? Maybe not in society, but in bikes, yes, there has. I loved riding this bike. I think it's fantastic. But my Aethos, it's lighter. It seems to be faster. It seems to be a bit comfier. And it handles, I would say, just as well. But I don't think we can argue that this doesn't look better. It is so nice. I love the traditional lines of this. But will I be swapping my modern bike for a 90s bike? No. I think I like all of those things that we have now, like disc brakes and wider tyres, just too much. They make too much of a nice difference to my everyday riding. But what do you think of this 90s bike? Hell, do you still rock a 90s bike? Fair play to you if you do. Let us know if you do, And if you do, let us know what you've got in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. I think I've lost the gears, or it might be just user error. I'm really not sure.